Oh, shit! Fuck, damn, bitch! Fuck, shit! Damn, hoe! Fuck y'all pussy hoes! Y'all fake as fuck! Oh, y'all ain't shit! Y'all ain't shit! Y'all ain't shit, bitch! Who?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of GaysideStories with Trillificent. It is all LGBT all the time around here. Well, most of the time, because anyway, it doesn't matter. So I'm excited because I have a special guest this week, someone that I recently have started standing for, and he knows that. And I'm actually going to let him introduce himself.
All right. Hi, guys. It's Charneil from the What About Your Friends podcast. I'm happy to be on with Trillificent. He's a good time, and I hope I am too.
You are always a good time. That's why I enjoy What About Your Friends. Speaking of, why don't you talk a little bit about that podcast? And I think you may have some other things in the works.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So What About Your Friends is my baby. It's basically just a show, conversation between two really good friends. We talk about pop culture, current events, social issues through the lens of queer men of color. It's a good time. It's everything from like healthcare, politics to Beyonce, because we all should care about Beyonce. Right?
You already know.
Yeah, 100%. Like,
and it's not just hometown pride around here.
Oh, yeah. H-Town coming down.
It's well deserved. But also because Houston.
Because Houston. And I'm starting my true crime show, What Did You Do, is dropping either next week or the first week of December. I'm really excited. That's with my friend Diana, who we're both social workers, but we're both really into like the dark, morbid parts of the human brain. I'm starting Boys Love Beyonce with Baby Huey from the Man podcast, which I'm really excited about. And Two Man Fast Break, which is a basketball podcast, because I have to unlock every door in my brain to function. And that's what I
see. You know what? Shout out to you, because you're about to be out here working.
And tired. So.
Well, that's a given. 4 podcasts. Woo!
Woo.
Now,
same time. Woo.
Any of these podcasts are they going to be a different frequency, or are they all going to be weekly?
No. So basketball, Two Man Fast Break is definitely going to be weekly. What About Your Friends is a weekly show. But What Did You Do and Boys Love Beyonce, I think we both agree that's going to be bi-weekly. I know that What Did You Do is going to drop on Mondays, and I think Boys Love Beyonce will be Friday. So. Okay.
Well, I'm excited about all of these different things, even though I don't watch the sports. Not that I'm not into, I'm really bad with keeping up with stuff like that. So I don't watch anything consistently. But there's also not many queer lenses on sports, so that'll be interesting. So I'm excited for that. I'll be tuning in, and hopefully our shared listeners will be listening as well.
Yes, God.
So thank you again for joining me and giving us that good information about all of the good work that you're doing out in the podverse, or whatever y'all call it these days.
Yeah, whatever it is, yeah.
Whatever. So let's get into some segments. Let's start off with the School and Life segment. So, quick reminder to all of the listeners, the School and Life segment is 1 or 2 quick things that help you get through the past week. So I'm actually going to defer to you, Charneil, first. And please let us know what your School and Life is.
Wow. So my last 7 days has been crazy stressful for me. I got a lot of close family friends and just family who are not well right now. So I've been stressed with that, work, podcasting, volunteer stuff. So one of the things that it's going to sound really basic. One of the things that keep me like together and keep me, grounded is I come home to my empty apartment and I like silence, but I play a lot of NBA 2K because I get to be somebody else who's like athletically gifted and rich, and so that's always fun. That, and I like listening, not surprisingly, but to podcasts. Like I'll find a really good storytelling podcast, and I'll just escape for like those 45 minutes. So it's It's really simple, really basic, but it really works. So if y'all looking for something to get out of your heads, like, can I suggest podcasts to listen to, or is that not?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So a few of my favorites, they're funny. King Falls AM is an awesome one. Deadly Manners is something that was new that just popped onto the scene. That's actually really good. And Terms, it's intense, but again, it's a whole other world. So it's just easy for me to close my eyes on my bed and just have like a whole other world happening around me. So yeah, that's me.
Yeah. No, that actually, I like that you mentioned that, because a lot of times it feels like people have one track mind when it comes to what a podcast is or what the content should be about. Mm-hmm. We say this all the time. Everyone is not the read. Like, there's various different things. There's people talking about the same stuff, but with a different point of view. But there's also, I feel like I just was talking about this. There's niche podcasts. There's different kinds of podcasts. So anytime we can highlight different kinds of podcasts and it's not the big podcast that most people have heard of before, I'm here for it.
100%.
So my schooling life for this week is actually group chats. So I'm a part of two different group chats. One with Bree, who you've heard on the show before, and our other friend Juanita. And I'm in another one with Jeremy and Candace, who you've also heard on the show before, and our friend Tay. And these group chats have been, I don't know, like Bree and Juanita and I have been in a group chat, I want to say, for probably the past at least 2 years, since group chatting was group chatting. And it's just, I love it because it's all over the place. It can go from a good morning to how are you to sharing good news. Like Bree just was telling us about promotions. She tells us about all these things going on, to sharing pictures of their kids, because y'all know I ain't got no damn kids. I ain't trying to have no damn kids. So I love that it can go from tea spillage to uplifting to just flat out LOLs. It just gives me what I need throughout the day, especially being at work. Y'all know my boss get on my last goddamn nerve. So being able to go in the group chat and see that, and the chat with Jeremy and Candace from the Ratchet Ramblings podcast is just, it's just jokes all day. You know how you have that one or a group of friends who you usually can say things and make jokes that you can't with other people, with most other people?
Oh yeah.
That's that group chat. So the running joke that in that group chat is whenever someone says something that's quote unquote over the line, we just say their name. And the past couple of days, I feel like they've been ganging up on me, because it seems like every time I say something, it's Curtis in all caps. And I'm just like, okay, this has to be a conspiracy. There's no way I'm worse than y'all. But I love that group chat because I can just get some of those thoughts out without offending anybody. And let me pause there and say, people listening, take heed that everything that you think and say does not need to be on the internet for the masses to take in. That's how a lot of y'all get caught up, because you feel like everybody needs to know everything that you're thinking. And I don't even feel like that's a social media thing or whatever, because that, you know what, that's a whole different rabbit hole that I don't need to tumble down. But just a friendly reminder, every fucked up, dark, twisted thought that you have does not need to be presented to Twitter or Facebook, somewhere where people can screenshot it and fuck your shit up.
Amen. Sometimes you need to say that fucked up shit to your friends,
Say that fucked up shit to your fucked up friends. Have a laugh. Like, that is what text messages are for. That is what, keep it in the iMessage. I feel like someone said that before on Twitter. Keep some of this stuff that y'all are saying on the internet, it needs to be in the iMessage, and you need to keep it moving.
I'm going to use that. Like, keep it in the iMessage, not the timeline. Oh, yeah.
That's it. Come on.
That's a word.
That's a word. That's a podcast title.
Right.
Keep it in the iMessage. Amen. Okay, so we're going to switch gears a little bit and move on to the Come Quick segment.
Ooh.
I'm going to come, sir.
Oh, yeah.
So I have a few things that I want to get off of my chest. and feel free to chime in where you see fit. First, actually has to do with you, and it's real quick. But
is this a read?
No, it's not a read. This is just funny.
Okay.
When we were on Twitter a couple weeks ago, when the 280 characters came out, and you were introduced to the 6 brown chicks,
Yeah.
I laughed so heartily when I saw your reaction.
I was like, what's the 6 brown? Like, what are we talking about? What are these people? Who are, I thought it was like one of those videos, like those disgusting viral videos that, like Blue Waffle or 2 Girls, 1 Cup, something gross. And I was like, oh, I don't want to look at it. And then it was even worse. It
is worse. It is worse.
Oh, God.
So that made me laugh heartily because I feel like I had a very similar reaction the first time I realized what it was, because I think I was on the timeline and I was seeing these weird questions and I'm like, who was taking cue cards from Maury and putting them on the timeline?
Right.
And then I was like, oh, okay, let me click on the
exactly.
And with the 280 I'm just, it's stressful. And the thing about it is, you want to think that it's not real, that people are making this up. Whoever's running the account is making this up. But men are so awful that I can see every scenario. As outlandish as some of them are, I can see it. Not only because men are just superbly trash, but also because I watch a lot of Investigation Discovery.
Right.
And some of the stuff on there is outlandish and just crazy as hell. So when I see these questions, I'm like, oh man, that's okay. Y'all need to sell this to Mona Scott instead of this free Twitter account. But then I think about it and I'm like, you know what? I can actually see somebody doing this. I can see a dude getting his cousin pregnant and telling his wife that, it was somebody else's baby, and then the baby come out looking just like him. And the cousin come around talking about, y'all gonna help with these baby expenses or not? I can see all of that crazy stuff happening. So that was funny to me. I held on to that for a couple of weeks because every Wednesday when 6 brown chicks starts getting retweeted on the timeline, I laugh thinking about that. I was like, Charneil is really clutching his pearl. Po thing, we done ruined his life.
I was at work like, the hell is this? Oh, I was like, y'all just all in the time. I message.
Exactly. And my question is, I don't know the whole story with the 6 brown chicks account, and I'm not shading them or anything because I don't know what's going on over there, but I'm wondering what becomes of any of this. Like, are they writing an advice column? Are they trying to help these people? Are they giving them some bosom love? I don't know what the point of it is. Other than to get the timeline revved up. Right.
Like, is it like a DM thing that happens? Is it like,
I don't know how it works.
Like, we see your issues. You really need to talk to someone professional about this, but our take on it is X, Y, and Z in the DMs, or maybe they're just like, we're going to put you out there and hopefully someone who is involved in your situation reads it and gets pissed at you for putting the business on the timeline, and then it gets for you. That's how
because at first I was thinking, I'm like, so is it like a show and they put it on the timeline just to see if there's any good answers, but then they answer the questions. I don't know. I don't know the story, and I don't really care, so I've never done the legwork to figure out what's going on. But your reaction was still priceless. So, speaking of reactions, I was on Facebook, and we all know that Facebook is a cesspool of foolishness, among other things. And I saw a video, and I don't know how old this video is, but it was my first time seeing it, so y'all are just going to have to be either annoyed that I'm just now seeing it or outraged with me. There was a video that said you can cook your Thanksgiving meal in the dishwasher.
This is going to be one of my timelines on my show. So yeah.
Yes, I cannot wait. So
let's break it open because
I looked at that and thought to myself, caucasity just really is out of bounds. I don't understand how y'all can be so creative with doing things that don't need to be redone. You don't need to be reinventing these wheels, but you can't see simple things that are right in front of your face, like privilege and racism. But that's besides the point. So,
no. Read them, slay them, drag them.
If you guys are unfamiliar, this video shows a person cooking, cutting up vegetables and preparing a meal, how you do your mirepoix and all that kind of stuff. And then they put the food into mason jars. And they wrap the turkey, or whatever the meat was, I think it was turkey.
I think it was a turkey.
They wrap it in like saran wrap and put it in like a Ziploc bag and all that kind of stuff. They put the mason jars and the protein on the top rack of a dishwasher, an actual dishwasher, and then they run a cycle. And then they open the dishwasher. They take the mason jars and the whatever else out, and then they plate it. And they're like, hey, Thanksgiving dinner cooked in your dishwasher. So I understand that the world is in a place where we need to learn how to recycle, reuse. Like it's an actual thing. It's not just a slogan that they tell kids to get them to shut up in elementary school. I understand that. However, there are some things that have a very specific purpose, and they don't need to be repurposed.
Amen.
There's no earthly reason. There's no universal reason. There's no galactic reason for you to be cooking food in your dishwasher. Those same vegetables that you took all that time cutting up, you could have put that in a sauce pot on the stove and cooked it like a normal person. I don't understand this. I don't get what is this? Who the hell wants to cook in their dishwasher?
And you know what the fucked up part is, that someone saw that and ran to a Walmart and bought mason jars.
Oh, absolutely. They were on Amazon before the video ended.
100%. 100%. Don't get me wrong. I fall into the mason jar trap a lot when it came to like fruit smoothies and shit. But what I will never do, because my grandma taught me right. My grandma was from Mississippi, where everything you cooked hardened your arteries. Yeah. I would never cook something that doesn't have the word stove or oven in it. So it would
at the very least,
microwave oven.
Yes.
A convention oven,
Like, I cannot even imagine
toaster oven.
The throat chop that I would receive if somebody in my family came in and saw me putting mason jars full of food in the goddamn dishwasher.
Right next to your stove. Not even like...
Right next to the stove, or across from in the same space as a stove or as an oven. Can you imagine the reaction if you told somebody, like, they eat the food and it didn't look good because it did not look like it embodied anybody's seasoning?
No.
Also, it's just very leery, but that's beside the point. But can you imagine serving this meal and then you tell the people after the fact, I cooked all of this in the dishwasher? You know what that feels like? I feel like the reaction would be visceral, and I feel like the reaction would be similar to when when the people realize that Dr. Lecter is serving them like actual people.
Right.
Like, this liver is actually from Jim Bob.
Like, the fuck?
I feel like it's the same thing. It's like, what do you mean you cooked it in the dishwasher?
Right. I think it would be one of those incredulous things, just like the way I reacted to 6 brown girls or
right.
Brown chicks, where I'm like, this can't possibly... I'd look at them like, you're joking, because you can't cook in a dishwasher. Like, that's not something normal people do. No. And not only is it not something normal people do, somebody had to do it for the first time to find out you could do it. So I was like, who is this white person?
But I'm just thinking to myself, it probably is even slower because you have to wait for that whole dishwashing cycle to end.
What were you thinking?
And it's just like, it doesn't take that long to warm up no damn vegetables on the stove, right? Now, the turkey, the meat, good luck, everybody, because that looked like a trip to the hospital. I just don't believe that meat was cooked. It was either undercooked or overcooked. So either way, either you're going to be poisoned or your teeth are going to be on vacation. So, I don't know. But that was my outrage, and I'll be very interested to see how you and Frankie react to that on your show, because what the fuck? What the fuck?
Exactly. I saw that, and I was like, this is the perfect example of finding out you can do something, but the real question is, should you do this something?
Absolutely. I've been
can.
seeing that pop up again, and I think that that's another healthy reminder. It seems like a running theme for this show already. Keep it an iMessage, and just because you can does not mean you should.
Amen.
Right? So we're gonna move on just a little bit. So I have a quick story, a quick read, or whatever you want to call it.
I love stories.
So if you guys listened to the last episode or the episode before that, I don't remember, when I had to go off about Apple when I pre-ordered my iPhone X. So I get the phone, and AT&T.
Take your time.
You know, I'm trying to not get mad all over again, because you know how sometimes stuff is just so stupid that you get mad all anyway. So I'm trying to activate my phone, and the phone says, "Hey sis, we need your details from AT&T to verify you." And I said, "All right, cool." I put my details in, and it says, "Oh, we can't verify your identity." And I'm like, "Well, bitch, what the fuck? Like, you already know my phone number. What you mean? Like, what are you saying?" So I'm doing this. And I'm like, okay. Finally, after the allotted times to try to do it, it says, "We don't know who the hell you are, but if you are the person who actually bought this phone, you need to call this number." So I call the number with Apple. Somebody picks up. I tell them what's going on, and they say, "Well, have you talked to your carrier?" And I'm like, I had to catch myself, because my immediate reaction was going to be, did I say that the screen said I needed to contact my carrier, or did it say I need to call this number?
Right.
So I said, no, I did not. Okay, so they call AT&T. They patch me over. Apple drops off. I'm on the phone with AT&T. AT&T, these people have no idea what the fuck they are doing. The first thing that was jarring is no one seems familiar with any part of this screen that I had popping up. And I'm just thinking to myself, so y'all want me to fight y'all? Like, you want me to fight, because I was already pissed that my phone was late, but you know, whatever. Patience is a virtue, or whatever people say. But now the phone is in my hand, and it would not have been as bad, just like I told them, if I could actually use the phone in the meantime. But I couldn't even get into the actual phone. Like, it was like, either you gonna verify or die, bitch. And I'm like, what the fuck? So I'm going on with this, all these steps with because you know they have a script and they have set things, so they escalating up the ladder. Finally, we get to a point, and they're like, "We don't know what's going on. We've tried everything. We've been bouncing back and forth between SIM cards. We're gonna escalate and get with Apple, and we'll call you back." Within an hour. So of course an hour and a half goes by, nobody calls me. So I call Apple, and I actually got connected with a real cool guy, and he was like, "Oh no, bro, I feel like," shout out to him, I don't remember his name, but shout out to him, because I feel like when he heard what was going on, he was like, "You know what, this is gonna take a long time to resolve, and this is gonna take out a significant chunk of my shift." So, because he said, "I'm gonna stick with you until we get this resolved." And I'm like, okay, well, what if it takes a long time? He's like, "Oh no." He's like, "I will get back in contact with you. If I have to email you so you can call me, I'm going to stick with you until we get this resolved." And I was like, okay, I see what you're doing. I'm here for it, because I'm going to benefit from it, but I see what you're doing. Shout out to you. So we go through the same rigmarole of what Apple can do, what Apple can't do. So then he's like, okay, we need to get with AT&T. He calls AT&T. Fast forward. We're going back and forth, and he's trying to be my liaison, even though I'm on the phone.
Right.
And another thing that really burns my damn grits is when you call customer service and they don't listen. Because there's so much that we can avoid if you would just listen to what I'm saying. So I have to repeat myself over and over again because they are not listening. And he hears me getting frustrated, so he keeps trying to jump in because he can hear me about to go from, like, I'm right on that cusp of ma'am to bitch. All right, I'm right there at the cusp. So he's jumping in, and we're going back and forth. We keep getting escalated. So we get escalated yet again. Here's this lady coming on, and we tell her what's going on, and she gives us a generic answer. And I'm like, ma'am, if it was as simple as that, do you think that I would be on a 3-way fucking call with you and Apple? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Whew. Woosah, or whatever. So then she says, well, you need to go to an AT&T store and get another SIM. And I lost it in a nice way. Because I said, I'm not going... Well, maybe it wasn't nice. I want to say my exact words were, I'm not going to no AT&T store to get no SIM card when I have 2 sitting here, 2 functioning SIM cards. What kind of sense does that make?
Right.
And so then the guy jumped in, because by this point he was like, okay, it's about to get loose. So he jumps in and he explains everything. Long story short, she don't know what the fuck she's doing. She's trying to escalate it in their system again. And then miraculously, I connected my phone to my computer and iTunes, and it started working. Like, I could see it and everything. So I'm trying to tell them, hey guys, my phone is working. They're going back and forth. They can't even hear me talking. I'm like, hello. Hello. I'm like, guys. And finally they hear me, and I'm like, it's working. So I said all that to say, AT&T, I've been with y'all for a long time, but don't ever forget that you can suck my motherfucking dick from the back. All right? This shit it was ridiculous. Like, for no one to know what is going on, for no one to be able to give me answers and figure out what's happening, and constantly trying to shift the blame back to Apple. And Apple's like, bitch, we just sent him this phone. Ain't nothing wrong with that damn phone. It's y'all. And then when I was texting a friend of mine, and he said, well, what did Google say? I said, you know what? Let me consult Sister Mary Google. And Sister Mary Google told me that this was a widespread issue, that people were having issues with Verizon and AT&T activating their phones. So I'm going to say this. Apple, I've already given the fuck you to y'all, because y'all need to get y'all shit together. AT&T, you as well need to get your shit together, all right? We pay too much motherfucking money for shit not to be working the way it's supposed to, all right? Mm-hmm. And if it doesn't work the way it's supposed to, for y'all not to know how to fucking fix it. Get it together.
I mean, go off.
And that's all I have to say about that. My iPhone X is working. I'm good, whatever. But that shit made me mad, because I got it on Tuesday. I want to say they delivered it at about 12:30. My phone was not working until about 9 that night.
Wow.
So, do with that what you will. Fuck y'all, AT&T, bitches. Okay, last thing in the come quick, and then we'll move on to the main topic.
Go ahead.
And this is real quick. I just want to, it's just a friendly reminder that holiday depression is real. As someone who deals with it, and it blindsides me every year, but it's real. Like, it's just that time of year. And if you guys have listened to my show for any amount of time, you know that me and family are not. Yeah. Anyway, so every year when fall comes around, I just feel down, and it's something that I deal with. Like I said, every year I talk to my therapist about it, but it's just one of those things. So I just want to say, if you also have that down feeling during the holidays, there's nothing wrong. I mean, I won't say it's normal, but a lot of us deal with it. And I will say, do what is necessary to take care of you. All right. Mm-hmm. If that means not surrounding yourself with people that are going to tear you down in the name of family, or stress you out, if you don't want to cook this year, do whatever it takes to preserve you, because that's your number one priority. No one else is going to do it, no matter what they say. Because anyway, I'm trying not to go down these rabbit holes, y'all. Let me calm down. Let me center myself.
You can't have me on and not want to go down a rabbit hole, because it just feels like you should.
That's fair.
Because I'll touch on holiday depression, because it's something I deal with a lot. Ever since my mom passed away 10 years ago, it's something I've dealt with, because I I don't know. It's one of those things where you always feel a hole around this time of year, where there's always a laugh, or there is always a presence that is no longer present or around or accessible, that always leaves you kind of like wanting something that you're never going to get. And because of that, my grandma passed away 8 years ago now. And she was like the matriarch, which held the family together. You know, the old school black grandma. There it is. And when grandma ain't around no more, and you don't have to congregate at grandma's house and get along because she says so, you stop talking to each other because you don't have to anymore. You don't have to cross paths. And so for me, so it gets really hard for me in my family. Even like Thanksgiving is next week, so I'm over here texting aunts like, who's cooking? Everyone's like, well, I'm going to so and so's house. Ain't no one trying to get with the immediate family. It's not even a thought, you know. So I'm sitting here like, do I spend Thanksgiving by myself? Like, I know there are places I can go, but I want to warn people, like, don't get trapped in the ideal or thought or what society tells you a family is. Family is built, and even if it's biological, if it's DNA, if it's blood, you still have to work to build relationships
and maintain them.
And if people around you aren't doing that, don't feel obligated to spend time with them because it's what everybody else is doing. If you've got family that you've created, family that you've built, go hang out with those people who are going to uplift you. Go hang out with your friends' family, the ones who embrace you and encourage you every time they see you. Don't hang out with the family members that are going to question your love choices or question your sexuality or question your school choices or your work career choices. Go around people that are going to encourage you but also hold you accountable. I'm not saying go with people who are going to stroke you and tell you everything's all right when it's not, but those people who know how to walk that line, so stay with them. If you don't want to cook, don't. Tell somebody else they can cook. Have someone else host this year. You know, like, do all the right things, but do all the things that make you happy and that will sustain you through this season, because I know how dark it gets. So, yeah, that's it.
I feel like you was strumming my pain with your fingers, because that was... some of that was, I was like, oh, so this applies directly to my life. So, I agree with everything that Charneil said. You guys take care of yourselves this holiday season. Let's make it to 28. I mean, I know it is bleak, but we have to persevere, right? So, with that being said, we're going to actually get into the main topic. So, this week, I wanted to discuss this article that I found a couple of months ago. The name of the article is 7 Things You Might Live to Regret If You Follow This Gay Guy's Current Path in Life. So, you know, when I saw that title, I said, it piqued my interest because I wanted to see, is he living like a normal life, but he feels like it's trash? Or is he living an actual trash life? Or is he living a good life, but he's just unhappy? So we're going to get into this and see what he's talking about. So it starts off by saying, gay men in particular share many self-imposed convictions, and I'm certain by listing the things I'm in danger of living to regret, I can provide myself and potentially others with a map to navigate around and refer back to these issues in the hope for a happier future. So I'm going to first say that I understand what you're trying to do with this sentence, but you need to get this together. This long ass run on sentence with all of these hyphens, you need to get this together, sir.
Yes. Why was I dragging him too when I read it?
Because you could hear it in the way that I was reading it, but there's all these hyphens and pauses and a lack of commas. Anyway, that's not the point. But sir, get it together.
Someone took this and said, okay, submit if you want, sir.
Exactly. I feel like these editors are setting these people up these days, but that's not our business.
No, it is not. Not my ministry.
At all. So the first thing says, letting fear keep you lonely. Okay, this is already a word. Because a lot of y'all out here scared and lonely. Mm-hmm. I mean, I too struggle with being scared with lonely. All right. So it says, I was overjoyed to make a few close friends when I moved to London alone. I created a little world for myself, but as it began to expand and gaps appeared, I realized I shouldn't rely on any one individual to provide me with a social life. Woo! Woo!
Come on, Shondo.
Tabernacle. If I had a tambourine, no Eve. That said, Those special friends are still in my life now, and I wouldn't change it for the world. I just don't want to unfairly cling to them. Okay, I feel like you reading me down after I done read you. Full circle.
That's what you get.
It says, I have tried submersing myself in social groups or volunteering work, but anxiety or fear has always stopped me from going back or properly integrate. You know what? I'm sick of you reading my life. We just started this article.
He said, sit down and look in this mirror, sis, because it's about to be great.
Yeah. Jesus. It says, I have recently joined an LGBTI jiu-jitsu club, work bitch, to widen my circle of friends, fill my time, and develop a skill. My future self says I won't give up and let fear keep me at home alone. I need to collect my thoughts because you know when you get read, your immediate reaction is to be on the defensive. So I'm gonna let you say what you need to say first, and I'll chime in when I can because I need to unclench my pearls.
Do it. Take your time. I walk a very fine line, and Frankie will make fun of me for it on the timeline and on the show. He'll be like, Charneil doesn't like to leave the house, and the truth is, I do not.
Amen. Sorry.
And it has nothing to do with me not like me being afraid to like. I'm very social. I'm very extroverted. If you listen to What About Your Friends, you know there's very little I keep secret. But what I really end up doing, and people see it as isolating, is that I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
I do a lot of things, like from work to volunteering to podcast. Like my life is full. It's like people were saying, like I'm not just busy, I'm unavailable. I'm that person. And so when I get home, I tend to shut everything off and like shut everything out. But I will say that there was a point in time in my life where I had to learn to be lonely as well. Like I think that's also something that should be touched on. Like there's nothing wrong with making friends and needing to be out because connection is important, but also learning to be by yourself is a gift. Learning to kind of recover and recuperate and gather yourself to get back around other people, because there's nothing worse than having an irritated, exhausted, and bitter Charneil at a party. It won't be.
That's not fun for anyone.
Exactly. So I get both sides, man. Where you want to go out, you want to connect with people because it's not good for people to be home alone all the time and not have friends and not be able to express themselves and sharing things. But the opposite side is also learning to be lonely. And just because you're lonely does not mean you have to be alone. So if you've unclutched your pearls, you could go ahead.
So I agree with what you said. I only have one thing to add to that, and that is hopefully the friends that you surround yourself with are friends that you can actually talk with about this. It took me a very long time, but when I finally shared a lot of my struggles and why, sometimes I just kind of fall off the face of the earth with my close friends who, essentially are my family, shout out to what you were saying earlier.
Oh, yeah.
That made a huge difference. And I want to highlight my friend Nikki because I feel like she took that and ran with it and really tailored how we interact with with what she thinks I have going on. And we've talked about that before. She said, sometimes when I see that you're not responding as much as you usually are, I figure that you might be in a little bit of funk. You need a little bit of time. But I also got a time limit on that shit, and I'm going to come snatch your ass if necessary. You know what I mean? So I definitely agreed with the point being that, because that's something that I struggle with, feeling like I'm a burden to my friends because I just have all of these, mental issues, and it can be difficult to navigate being that sociable person that people want to be around, so that it's not a situation where they're not inviting you out or you don't really have any friends, and because you're not a person that people actually want around.
Right.
But also, as you said, you don't necessarily need to be alone when you're feeling lonely. And hopefully you cultivated the people around you that can help combat that, and you're not just sitting in front of people still feeling lonely as hell. So next up, it says, letting negative body issue rule. You know what? I'm sick of this article already. That's the end of the show, you guys. Thank you so much.
You gotta take a lap. What they say in the church, sometimes you gotta run for your life.
Listen, because this is too much already. Okay. serious. It says, letting negative body image rule your life. I previously wrote a comment piece about how I felt less of a person because of my body, even when other things in my personal life were going well. So you just going, again, you strumming my motherfucking pain. In the piece, I describe how even though I have been successful in a professional capacity and in some other ways, including blah, 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 in my eyes, I still couldn't shake the idea that I was lesser of a person because my body wasn't, quote unquote, up to scratch. I wasn't appreciating the things that were exceptional in my life. My future self says I will learn to recognize when I should take pride and appreciate something regardless of where I am in other personal journeys. Whew.
You are just over here.
I am going through it. I haven't read this article in a long time either. Oof. You just dragging my ass to the cross.
Behind the veil now. You in the room.
Shit, I done broke out in a sweat. You know what? I agree with this. I feel like, and people talk about this often in the LGBT community, specifically amongst gay men, body is life. Right. Amongst a lot of people. And a lot of people also lie about what kind of bodies they like because it looks good. But that's a whole different episode. But I will say that a lot of times we keep ourselves from achieving what we want because of our own internal body issues. Mm-hmm. Because, case in point, story time with Trillificent.
Please, love stories. Come on.
When I was younger, I had these issues because I was a little bit chunkier. I mean, listen, if I could go back to that anyway.
Right, if you were fat, as fat as you were when you thought you were fat back then.
Bitch, you would be able to let me tell you what you would be able to tell me. Nothing.
Amen.
Anyway, back in the gap when I was a baby gay and I was a baby chunk, I had those same body issues. Like, nobody's going to want me. You know, me and Belly over here, we doing our thing, but ain't nobody trying to fuck with that. And it wasn't until I expanded my horizons that I even knew there are people that actually covet that. There are people that are attracted to it. There are guys that they like them a big boy, they like them a chunk boy, they like them a little belly, something to rub. And even then, those issues were so ingratiated in me, it took a long time for me to even accept that. I think I've talked about that a little bit on the show before. Mm-hmm. Where I come across somebody and they're like, man, you sexy as hell. And I'm like, what you looking at?
Like, who?
Who?
Bitch, you at me.
Who said that? Who said that?
Who said that?
You know? And so it took me a long time to finally realize my body issues are mine. Because the guys that are into it, it's not stopping anybody's dick from getting hard. It's not stopping anybody from doing having, as John would say, explicit gay sex. So I agree with this point that sometimes we need to get out of our own heads and realize what else we have going on. And I want to highlight a friend of mine, Bree, because she's very good for saying she'll come and she'll snatch my wig and tell me, listen, you have all of these things going on. Because I'm the person that has things going on and has successes, but I can't see them because I might be focused on the one thing. So it's like, okay, I've gained a little bit of weight and Bree will come in, do a Power Ranger flip into my life, and it's like, okay, but your professional life is amazing. Your friends love you. You have this going on. You have that going on. Like, okay, you gained a little bit of weight. Do what you need to do. You know what you need to do, but you still have all this other stuff to be thankful for. So shout out to this one. What say you, Charneil?
What say I? So I would agree, like what you said in the beginning, that youth and aesthetic, their currency in the queer community. Obviously, like, people lie about the type of bodies they want to see more worldly and more tolerating, or what's the word? Tolerant, which is true, and it sucks. And I'm in the same boat as you, but I wasn't. I love that you said baby chunk. I'm going to use that, or chunk boy. I was like, growing up, I was never big. It was never a thing for me. I never thought about it. I never was concerned about it. Even when I gained weight before, I was like, it's whatever. It's a body, So like, it wasn't until I hit college that I started actually putting on weight because I was trying to. Mm-hmm. I was lifting all my suite mates. I had 7 suite mates, and and like 6 of the 7 played football.
Jesus.
So they were like, "Oh, we're going to the gym. You need to eat peanut butter jelly on wheat before you go to sleep. After we go to the gym, like all this shit." So I was like, "Oh, so I should be a little bit bigger, right?" But I mentioned on the show, on my show, What About Your Friends, a few episodes back, probably about 10 episodes back, we did an episode on binge eating disorder. And it's something I really struggle with. So I make really poor food choices a lot. And not only that, the portions are ridiculous.
Eat me.
Right. And there's no shame in that. I'm not concerned about it. I also don't want any pity for it. But I also realize that there's so much more to who Charneil is, just like there's so much more to who Curtis is than what I look like or what size my pants are or what size shirt I wear. Like you could be successful in your career. You could be successful in your friendships and, whatever your extracurriculars are in podcasting and writing, like you could be amazing. And it's up to you to figure out what you don't like about yourself and what's actually important in liking about yourself. So I would agree. Like it's something that I've struggled with and it hasn't been until recently. And I think podcasting has helped, like building community and networking with so many different types of people who will encourage me and say, wow, you're this or you're that or you're that, on days I couldn't see it or I didn't want to see it. So yeah, it's important to have people around you who are willing to say, look, you're never, what's the, there's a saying or a quote, like we never ever truly see ourselves as we are anyway. Like we've only seen reflections in photos. We'll never see ourselves the way other people see us. So when other people look at us and they're like, damn, you fine. It happened to me when I was in DC last weekend. Somebody was like, you're gorgeous. And I said, who?
Who said that?
Like, don't get me wrong. Like this also the beautiful. Like, I might not like my body all the time, but it is mine, right. And there's not one on this earth like it. So I can not like my body all the time, but be confident in the fact that I'm Charneil. So like, I like myself. I just don't like how I look all the time. So I was like, who is gorgeous? Who is that? Me? He's like, yeah, you. And I'm like, oh, hello, conventionally attractive person telling me that I'm attractive.
Hello.
But I also shouldn't. But my idea of attractiveness or the truth behind it shouldn't have to come from someone who is generally deemed attractive. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of work to be done for me in that, where I shouldn't have to be validated by someone that somebody else will like to tell me I'm good looking. I should already know that, or I should already know that somebody's going to want my body because dicks get hard and booties get slapped. It's going to happen regardless of what I look like.
Exactly.
So that's all I have to say. Thus saith the prophet, thus saith the Lord.
So, last thing I'll say on that is what I've been telling myself lately is not to be upset about things that I know I have the power to change. Right. So, and body issue is one of those things. Like, I know I have the power to change. I can switch my diet. I can work out. I can do those things. And the body will change as long as I'm consistent. So, shout out to that one, because
wait, you know what else? Mm-hmm. I want to say this. Do you listen to Kenya at all?
Yes.
So I don't know if she had said it on her podcast, but if she tweeted it. But it works especially if you're trying to lose weight or get fit. Is the words I usually say. I'm not trying to just be skinny. I'm trying to be fit.
Right.
But
healthy.
Right, healthy. She made a comment on Twitter, I think, and she said, I'm not looking to go on a weight loss journey. I'm looking to make lifestyle change.
Yeah.
And she goes, what's the point of me losing 100 pounds if my brain is still the same, if my way of thinking is still the same, the people I'm surrounded with are still the same, So she's like, I want to make a change, that slow turn of a dial to get to a point where I'm happy with myself, whether that be mind, body, and soul. And I think that's super important to remember too, is not just to get to 180 pounds on a scale or 200, whatever people's goals are, but to make sure that your thought processes change, that your habits change, that you're actually working to be better and healthier in all ways. So yeah, now we can move on. I wanted to say that before, and
I definitely agree. And shout out to Kenya.
Yes, girl.
So next up, it says, writing off the potential for friendship after failed date.
Wait, because
yeah, pause.
this is when I started to disagree.
Yeah, I was like, oh, disagree, strongly disagree. Number 5, strongly disagree. Okay, but let's see what he says. It says, I used to take rejection so personally. Pause. I've talked about this on the show before. You guys go back to episode, I want to say 21, with Kevin from the Outline about rejection. Okay, so it says, I used to take rejection so personally, and sometimes still can, when it came to dating, so much so that I wouldn't even consider being friends with guys from failed dates. Shutting that possibility off in my mind only does myself harm. What if he had a lot in common? Oh, sorry. What if we had a lot in common aside of attraction? My future self is applauding me for managing and enjoying a friendship with an ex for the first time ever.
So I'll go.
Yeah. Tag team.
So I read this differently at first, and then because I'm sick of his future self, because your future self might not be all these things, but
no, more than likely won't be. And
right.
That's no shade, but
no, it's not shade
real.
at all. But like every day, like you wrote this on one day, and the next day, the way you saw the world might have changed, or you read something, or influenced by someone. Doesn't matter. See, in my head, there's a difference between dating and relationships. So there are tons of people now, mind you, all my ex-boyfriends except for one, I have friendships with. Like, I can show you my text thread, and they're all within the last week. Like, I speak to them, we've hung out. Like, it's not like no ill will. It wasn't the fact that we hated each other. It was just the fact that we acknowledged we were incompatible.
Right.
So yes. But when it comes to failed, like, first dates, second dates, third dates, when you don't know someone and you're really working off of mutual or quote unquote or supposed or
alleged,
right, mutual attraction, where it's like there's not much to go on because you don't know each other. Nah. I say you can let those, like that dog won't hunt, fam.
Yeah.
Like, no, I don't. If we go to dinner and I realize that you voted for Trump and you like, and you live at home with your mama because you don't know how to function or handle your money well, or you just don't brush your teeth every other day, it's just like, no. Like, after that, like, once I realize we're incompatible, just because we like comic books and we like chicken, we're not going to get along. I'm not going to try to make friends out of it because I'm that lonely. So that's one of the goes back to the whole learn to be lonely thing.
Yeah,
like,
learn to be alone. Yeah.
Find your friends at the public library or at like a queer like gathering, like hike or something. You don't got to do it through dating. That's problematic because you don't want to be fucking your friends either. So,
yeah. So I will say, I read this similar to how you read it. And my only thing to add to that is future self needs to get it the fuck together, because you don't necessarily need to make space in your life for everyone that you come across.
Amen.
Just because you went on a date, just because y'all went and got a fish platter at the local spot and you like the music and he was cute, that doesn't mean that he needs to be in your life. And it says a lot about the author. And I'm just really wondering, I hope that this person, whenever they wrote this, I hope that they're talking to a professional, because it sounds like you have some deeper issues and they're coming out in this article, which usually happens. But friendships or finding people to be friends with seems to be a running theme that this person is having issues with. But for the listeners, I will say, as Charneil said, going on dates with somebody, like, just because y'all went to Topgolf, that doesn't mean that that's someone who needs to have permanent residence in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to have that discernment of, is this someone that I can actually be friends with? Like, am I going to benefit from this person being in my life? Or is it a situation where they're just taking up space until what I deem something better comes along? I.e., in this situation, it seems like an actual relationship. Mm-hmm. Again, you will come across so many people in your life. Not everyone is destined or needs to be or deserves to be in your life. All right?
Say it.
So, next up it says, being unable to enjoy your own company. Ooh, this bitch shaking the table. It says, I have a serious case of FOMO. That's FOMO. So much, I don't even know what FOMO is.
Neither do I, and I meant to Google that, and I'm like, what the hell is FOMO? Is that Is that an English thing?
Right. I'm like, I wonder if that's like wanker and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, it says, so much so that I get down. Okay, I'm gonna read it the way it's written. Sorry. So much so that I get down, even I'm alone for an afternoon at the weekend. I don't.
Who proofread this?
Yeah, but you know what? That's also been a running theme on my show. These articles that I come across, the editing. Anyway, I moved to London to do amazing things. Why am I at home? Bitch, because you pay for it. Anyway.
Amen.
This attitude isn't healthy for my mental health, And although many of us feel lonely sometimes, we have the ability to use that free time to do something productive. My future self is grateful I now use my spare time to read books, go to the cinema alone, watch TED Talks, and learn Spanish on Duolingo. So, the first part of this, I don't know what the hell he was saying, because the way it's written, it's hard for me to even contextually figure it out.
I Googled what FOMO meant. So I think what FOMO is fear of missing out.
Ah, okay.
So the first paragraph now makes sense. But the editing is still terrible. Someone should have went through and rewrote that.
Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. There's red ink all over this. But I agree. I feel like we have daily, hourly, by the minute, by the second evidence on Twitter, for example, or Facebook, that people do not know how to be alone. They do not like being alone. Maybe they don't like themselves. Maybe they just feel like life is not fulfilled if I'm not out with other people or doing something with another person. Mm-hmm. But it's very, very, very important to be able to enjoy your own company. And that doesn't mean that you're missing out. It doesn't mean that you are lame or whatever the case may be, because I see this a lot with younger gays. Like, they feel like being in the house is for suckers, and I'll sleep when I'm dead, which no, girl, you will be dead when you're dead. That's not the same thing. But I see this a lot amongst younger gays. It's like, if they come across somebody that wants to just chill at the house every now and then, it's the end of the world. Like, no, we need to be out shaking our ass. We need to be doing this. We need to be doing that. And sometimes I look at that and I wonder, is this what you really want? Is this what you're conditioned to think that you want? Or is it that you just don't want to be alone because you've never developed that ability to be alone? And that is a skill. Not everyone can abide by their thoughts when there's no one else around. And I'm not talking about you're sitting at home, you don't want to be bothered, so you're binging on Netflix, eating pizza, getting your life. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people who, they will literally do and say anything so that they don't have to be with themselves. And I don't know how you get through life if you can't handle being alone, because it just doesn't work that way. You know what I mean? If you can't stand you, then how do you expect someone else to?
But I think it also speaks to, who are you?
Yeah.
When you're home alone, and who are you when you're with these people? Like, if you can't stand yourself when you're in the solace of your own home, your own apartment or whatever, what facade are you putting on for the people around you so that they can tolerate you?
Yeah,
who are you turning into? Because that's exhausting.
Yeah.
To be someone else around people all the time. I did it for a year and couldn't do it anymore. I was like, I'm just going to be whoever I need to be all the time because it's what makes me function. I had a friend like that who was constantly out and about and just didn't know how to be home, was constantly spending money, constantly wasting money, being out and going to bars and going to parties. And I'm like, for what, dude? Yeah. Like, you need to learn how to be home. Like, not only for the sake of, like, it's not even me being, like, jealous or anything. It's like, you need to learn to be home. Like, there's nothing wrong with saying, like, no one wants to be that person who's always out at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
Like, I can call Curtis because I know his ass is up.
Right.
Like, like, he ain't got no home training, so I know he'll be out. And, I mean, some of it might be that, you're right, it's younger gays. Some of it might be that they feel like they have a fear of missing out. Mm-hmm. Like, they've been so home alone and in the closet for so many years, and now that they're out, and they're living their best life, they want to get everything. They don't want to be a partial benefactor to anything. But it's like, dude, it's okay to coalesce, to come home, decompress, do what you got to do. And I said it earlier, like, when you learn to be lonely, or it's just okay. Like, even if you're not lonely, like, if you just learn to be alone, so much gets done. I do so much by myself. Yeah. So much shit gets done. Like, I don't envy people who are always out and can't stay at home. I don't know how they do it. I would rather live the way I do now. I'm grown. I'm 28. I've lived that life, been there, done that. Mm-hmm. I'm ready to stay and watch Netflix. I don't know what y'all doing. Right. So,
and not that there's anything wrong with that. I want to highlight that I feel like this is also a case of learning balance. Yes. Because there's absolutely nothing wrong with going out and shaking your ass every night or every weekend, getting your life, doing, if that's how you have fun and decompress, there's nothing wrong with that. But there needs to be balance in all things. You still need to be able to be at home by yourself or be somewhere by yourself, do things by yourself, because that's another thing. A lot of people cannot do things by themselves. And I used to be one of those people. People that can't go to the movies by themselves, which I kind of prefer it. But,
I love doing it now.
Yeah, but there was the movies no, because I like to go to the movies during off hours because I don't like to be in the movie theater with a lot of people. But people that can't do simple things, like can't go to the grocery store by themselves. They got to call somebody up, be like, okay, we meeting at the store at what time? Can't work out alone. Can't do this alone. Can't do that alone. And like
I do all of this alone.
Exactly. But there are literally people who they need a companion in everything that they do. Like anytime they're stepping out of the house, they need a companion. And my point is that that's not entirely healthy because
not cute.
Yeah, no, at all. And as the article said, you use your spare time for a lot of things, but we don't want to be in a situation where you feel like your spare time, your free time is for turning up all the time. Your spare time is for you. How you choose to use it is up to you. But again, have the discernment to say, sometimes I want to do mindless things. I want to shake my ass. I want to dance the stress of the week off. And sometimes I want to build on me. I want to improve me. And sometimes I just want to be a mindless idiot watching Netflix.
Yes.
Balance in all things, children.
Balance, yes.
All right. Next up, it says, disrespecting your journey by always wanting more now. Okay, this seems like this might be a word, so let's pay attention.
Focus up, kids.
It said, I had a conversation with my friend the other day about our gym progress, and he was frustrated about seeing others progress, quote unquote, better than him. I pointed out he was comparing his journey to a snapshot of someone else's, Whew, millennial. Ha! And that's a word. He doesn't truly know the time, effort, and sacrifice other people have made, let alone their starting point. That's also a word. By advising him, I also learned a lot about respecting my own gym progress and working to be patient with something that is a marathon, not a sprint. My future self thanks me for being patient, persistent, and working to avoid comparison. I agree. I just agree. And something that I could use, a good example that I could use to highlight this is podcasting. I feel like a lot of people get into podcasting, and there are some points where I may be a little guilty of this myself, just because human, unfortunately. A lot of people get into podcasting. They see, let's be honest. I feel like a lot of people get into podcasting because they see the bigger podcast and people living off the podcast and feel like I should be able to do that too. And they don't pay attention, or they don't have any mind for what it took for them to get to that point.
Yep.
Using the Read, for example. Kid Fury already had a huge following, but he's been working on that following since, I want to say, he was like 19.
Right.
Doing like videos and everything like that. You know what I mean? Crystal had a following because she's been on Twitter since Twitter was Twitter almost. And when you have that strong of a, for lack of a better term, brand, that success is going to come in conjunction with having a good product. Whereas now, there's a lot of podcasts out there. It's quote unquote saturated, but you still cannot look at someone else's podcast journey and expect to get where they are when you just started yesterday. You have to put in the work. What's that quote? Everybody want to be Beyonce until it's time to do the work.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely agree with this. We have to learn how to be mindful of wanting more, because there's nothing wrong with wanting more, but also be mindful of what journey is it going to take to get more? What sacrifices, what sweat, what blood, what tears am I going to have to depart with in order to get to that point? Because it's not instant, it's not overnight. And the gym is a good example, because Lord knows it takes nothing to pack on weight, but it damn near got to move heaven and earth to get that shit off of you. However,
hallelujah.
everyone's journey is different, and that's in all things. And
Amen.
that's something that I tell myself a lot with the podcast is I see other people's journeys, I see other people's podcasts, and they're doing big things and numbers and blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. But I want what's for me. And I want my own journey. I don't want to say, okay, well, if, I don't know, whatever goes on with this podcast in the future, and then I look back and it's like, yeah, this was just like such and such. I want to be able to say, no, Curtis had his own journey. Trillificent had his own journey. GaysideStories had its own journey. And so far, it's already been that way, and I just want to continue with that. So, what do you have?
No, so when I read this article, I had the same thought as you. I was comparing it to podcasting. Not long ago on the show, I had made a comment about another show that had started after we had, and they were blowing up. And I attributed it to a few things. You know, it's their content, it's who the hosts are.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you get it.
Yeah. 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 I get it.
And I know that podcasting as a white gay is a lot different than podcasting as a brown one. And it means what you're going to talk about is going to be a little bit more, I don't know, a little bit more diverse, a little bit more, intense at times. You're going to talk about things that make other people comfortable, so they would avoid those conversations. And so I was looking at these podcasts and I was like, wow, they're playing games and laughing about stupid things and spent every episode talking about Britney Spears' album Glory, but they're not really doing anything. And I used to judge myself like, so what if I what am I doing wrong? Like, do I need to, for lack of a better term, dumb myself down? Do I need to not talk about things that are important to me? And why? And then I had to remind myself, why did I start podcasting? Like, why did I even want to do it? And it wasn't because I thought there was going to be money in it. That would be nice, but that's not why I do it. And it's because I just knew that there's a lot of stories and a lot of experiences that aren't being shared, and I wanted to be the one to share some of them. Mm-hmm. And also, I knew that it was going to take sacrifice. I know there are so many nights with What About Your Friends that I've been up till 3-4 in the morning, and my alarm goes off at 5:30. There's so many times that I've done that. Or I've been stressed about it, or, you pay money for certain things, for marketing and for hosting and websites, and, you do what you got to do. So when I look at somebody else, I'm like, okay, I see their success and I see them handling a certain way. Am I ready for that? Like, am I in a personal space, in a personal headspace to handle success if it came in that way? So It's like, you want what's for you, and I want what's for me. And so my framework of success is not going to look like Trillificent. It's not going to look like Kid Furies and Crystals.
Yep.
They might have similar, similar parts, but they're not going to be the same. How we get there aren't going to be the same. It's going to be a sacrifice. So if you're not willing to sacrifice, we're going to look at Kid Fury and the Read as is, and not understanding that Kid Fury was up late at night editing YouTube videos and going and working full time and going to school, like all this stuff. Like, there was a whole bunch of stuff that went into it. So it's not healthy to compare yourself to someone who's already there, because that's years of work.
Exactly.
And if you can look at yourself and say, Charneil, I'm willing and ready to put in 2 to 5 years to get my podcast to a point where I can share myself with other people and encourage and uplift other people. If I can say yes to that, then I'm all right being where I am right now. If that's not going to be working for you, if you can't reconcile with that, then you need to maybe not podcast. Maybe you need to start writing a blog. Mm-hmm. Like, maybe this isn't work, so you need to get what's for you and ask yourself if you're ready for it. So yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
I agree. I will say, I'll punctuate that with, you have to remember that just because someone looks similar to you on the outside, you are not the same person. You have not had the same experiences. The sum of their parts is not the sum of your parts. So by that thinking and that logic, you cannot have the same exact journey. It can be very similar, but I want to highlight what you said. Getting to the point where you think you want to be, it may affect you differently. You may think, okay, I want to be at that top level of a brilliant idiots, keeping on the podcast theme, or whatever other popular podcast, and then you might get there and the shit is whack to you. You don't want to be traveling and doing all that stuff. You don't want to be doing live shows and all that kind of stuff. So you You have to be very mindful of, this is where I want to go, but I also have to pay attention to the journey. And another thing with podcasting, as you were saying, you might get to a point where you realize, or depending on what's going on, maybe podcasting is not for you. And there's nothing wrong with that, because speaking for myself, I am the reason why I love Gay Side Stories, not just because I put so much work into it, but because I am learning so much about myself. Every week when I do this show, I learn a little bit more about myself. I listen back to the show and I'm like, that actually sounded kind of insightful. I don't sound like a complete bumbling idiot. Maybe I'm on something. And it also manifests itself in other ways. Like, I've had friends come to me and say, it's been interesting and enjoying, and I'm enjoying seeing you open and blossom and come out of your shell on the show. So just because you're doing podcasting, it may not necessarily be that you're doing it for monetary gain. There's other benefits. If you are doing it for the right reasons, you will get some benefits, even if it's not celebrity and whatever the case may be. So with that being said, we have two more, I believe, and these look kind of quick. So next up, it says, giving a damn about how many followers you have. Okay. All right. So now you're going to start reading. Okay. I was desperate to have a following over 10,000 on Instagram. That sounds stressful. I hoped it would be validation, and I spent a lot of time staring at my phone and taking insignificant pictures, hoping they would be noticed by strangers. My future self knows those special moments in life are for you to remember fondly, not for others to validate. I agree. I will say that with social media, and I hate going down this vein, but it applies. It applies because it applies. But I definitely will say there's a validation culture, and I don't think that people, it's the generation. I just think that it's the accessibility, and something that you have never thought or never coveted before. When you see it right in front of your face, it just becomes a thing that to you. You see guys on there with that workout and have 54,000 followers, and you're like, I want that. Never wanted it before, but I want it now. But I will say this: pay attention. In life, you really have to know how to read between the lines, because I can't tell you how often I look at a lot of these Instagram profiles and a lot of these Twitter profiles, people with a bunch of followers, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of followers, and they are not happy, or they are struggling just like everybody else. Something that I realized, and it's not shade to anybody, but I've noticed that a lot of those muscular or good-looking gay guys on Instagram, a lot of them are lonely. And it just goes to show you that a following, good looks, or whatever it is that you think that they have that you don't, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be happy and have all the things that you want and be shitting rainbows and kittens and glitter. Life just doesn't work that way. And I feel like life will humble the fuck out of you if you are looking for validation in those ways. You may get it a little bit. You may get it a lot. You may be completely validated, but I guarantee it's only going to apply in that one arena, because you can't go to anybody's job and say, well, I have 54,000 followers on Instagram, so what's up? Because they're going to say, well, you didn't do your work today, so give us that badge and get the fuck out. Or you were late. You've been late all these times because you in the stairwell at home trying to get the perfect angle for Instagram. And now here's your pink slip. Or, when you go to the Burger King or to the Subway or Red Lobster, whatever it is that you like, they don't care about how many Instagram followers you have.
No, they do not.
It doesn't pay your bill. Maybe if you're lucky, you can DM somebody and say, hey, send me some money. Anyway, I don't need to do that. My point, my point being, we have to learn how to validate ourselves first. Validation starts at home. It's nice. I won't say it's not nice to have, like you were saying earlier, Charneil, it's nice to have somebody say, oh, you're attractive, or I really like your podcast, or I really like your presentation at work. You really are doing big things. It is nice, but a lot of that comes from within first. If you haven't validated yourself and have that confidence to say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to fuck this shit up, everything else is just, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how many, because how many times have we seen people with thousands of followers and they delete their account? Like, it is not the end all be all the way a lot of people think. And that's all I had to say about that.
So I just want to start off by saying I've been trying to hit 1,000 followers forever. So what he needs to do is mind his damn business.
Triggered.
No. So one of the things I've always wanted to do is just because it's been fun for me to do it. Like, I've been on Twitter since like 2009, I think. And I've talked about nothing until I started podcasting. So it was all Beyonce and it was all food items and what I was doing. And it was never for a validation thing. It was just because if anyone who knows me, and if you listen to my show, which I suggest you do,
please do.
I have a lot of thoughts, a lot of things go on in my head. And sometimes you just need to get some of them out. And that's what Twitter is for me. Like, I rarely Instagram myself. It's just not, like, it's not important to me. Like, people know what I look like. I know what I look like. It's not that deep. Even if I was, like, conventionally attractive with abs, I wouldn't really do it. It just doesn't make sense in my head. But the validation I kind of seek, and I would agree with him in this part, is that, like, when I post a show, like, I want people to react to it.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Like, I want people to say, wow, that was funny, or wow, you did that, or yeah, I'm so glad you're talking about this. I need that validation to know that what I'm doing is working, you know, or that I'm doing makes sense, or that it's needed or wanted. That's the only validation I'm looking for. So, like, I mean, I get what he's saying, though. Like, I don't attribute my worth to the number of followers I have, but I would like to see, like, a 1K next to my name somewhere. Just because I just feel like people care about what I have to say and what I'm saying is important or at least resonating.
Yeah.
But other than that, just for the sake of having it, just to have it, no. It's like having muscles just to have them. For what?
No. Only thing with that I would say is it doesn't necessarily take a specific number. And if you're confident what you're doing and you're putting out a quality product, it will come. Right. It will come. Sometimes it takes longer than others, and you know, I've been in the same boat with you where it's like, okay, this podcast started after me, but they popping a little bit more severely than I am, and but again, everything what's for you is for you. So whether it has a 1K next to it or not, you may still get what you're looking for without that. You know, I think that sometimes tying a goal to a specific thing or specific number can be detrimental because you miss some of the if you're so focused on the destination that you don't enjoy the journey. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And this thing, I'm not in for the literal listeners. I'm not talking about if you're getting on a plane to go to Jamaica. Nobody cares about the plane ride, obviously.
Don't tell any. We don't care.
We don't care. But things like this, like a life journey, podcasting, or working on your craft, acting, those type of things, the journey can be just as important as the destination. All right. So we're going to wrap this up with this last one. It says, remember, letting your inner saboteur dictate your actions only leads to regret. This sounds like a read. I feel like this whole article was written for you, sir. So to be quite honest, like they just read me down, like Jesus. When they say you're your own worst critic, they weren't lying. Oof. My future self is grateful. I understand that voice never goes away, and it's how you learn to overcome it or work alongside it that counts. And I didn't read that sentence the right way, but whatever. Again, the commas and the space. This I don't know. I don't understand. Anyway, that doesn't have anything to do with anything. I often say this. I am my own worst critic because I literally am. But I'm learning. I will say I'm learning not to let it sabotage myself. And again, we can stay along the same point of the podcasting. This has probably been the most consistent thing that I've ever done in my life. I'm coming up on a year in January. I can't think of the last thing that I've stuck with like this for a year. You know, I'm not talking about the obvious things like working for a living and, you know, stuff like that. But something extracurricular is what I call it, that I really stuck with. And I didn't let my fears stop me from doing it or continuing to do it. Because there's a lot of things that I criticize myself on. The words that I choose to use sometimes. My voice. Lord knows I cannot stand my voice. And it's one of those things where I've had multiple people say, you have such a nice voice. Your voice is made for podcasts, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, girl, what are you hearing? Because when I turn it on, I'm like, yuck. But that's just one of those things. But I said, you know what? I'm not going to let my hangups with my own voice stop me from doing this, because this is something that I want to do. These conversations are conversations that I want to put out into the universe. It's something that I don't see enough of. I won't say that there's none of it, but there's not enough of these types of conversations, these types of podcasts. So I want to throw my hat into the fold. And I can't let my little hangups and my little gripes, or even some of my big ones, stop me. Because if I continue to do that, how am I ever going to accomplish anything? And then you look back and you think you're one of those people that never completes anything, because you're constantly letting fear or sabotaging yourself when you're trying to do something. You let that rule. And then you realize, okay, I haven't completed anything. And I think a lot of people stop there, and sometimes they don't do the extra work and say, okay, why didn't I complete this? Why didn't I continue with my podcast? What was going on? Why didn't I continue with my art? Why didn't I continue with that? Am I sabotaging myself? Am I doing things on Twitter that are probably going to ruffle feathers and make people not want to listen to my podcast? Am I saying things on Instagram that's going to make people not want to buy my artwork? Self-sabotage is real. And
even indirectly.
And most of the time it is indirect and it's insidious. You just have to be very, very self-aware. And I know that's not easy for everyone, but it's definitely necessary.
I will
That's all I have to say about that.
Right. No, I co-sign everything. There's not much for me to add on. No, but I fall in the same I fall into the same boat as you when it comes to being your worst critic and holding yourself to standards that are almost damn near impossible. And I referenced earlier in this episode that I've stayed up late nights for like What About Your Friends. There are times where like I've been up that night like so frustrated that I'm like, you know what, I'm just not good at this. I don't want to do it. Like I've had weird Twitter sprees where I'm like, you know what, I'm quitting podcasting. This is way too much. I don't care about it anymore. Like I'm not putting out anything good. I've done that with my writing. I've done that with my relationships. I'd gotten to the point where I'd meet a really good dude and I would like preface everything by telling him I'm terrible at dating.
Right.
You know, like very like verbatim. Like, I'm terrible at this, just so you know. Even when everyone else is telling me I'm not. You know, like I'm like, these like, actually you're not terrible at this. I'm like, no, believe me, I am. I'm super busy. Sometimes I'm really aloof. And they're like, you're not all of those things. What are you talking about? Like, you've been very present. You've been very nice. So it's just working yourself into a place where you love yourself enough to give yourself credit and to, you know, and hold yourself accountable. When something's not good, you'll know it. You know,
Right.
like, you know what your standard of acceptable work is, and you know when it falls far below that or when it goes, but you also won't always know when it goes above it. I want to say it was either Eli or Peyton Manning, and it's a sports ball thing. So if you don't know who I hope you know who they are.
I do,
but
I know who
okay.
Eli and Peyton Manning are.
Oh, thank God. But it was one of them who said, when you're good at something, you tell people, but when you're great at something, people will tell you.
Oh, that's a word.
Isn't it? And so, like, yeah, it's okay to be self-aware. Like, there are so many people who are creatives who know they're good at what they do, and hence why they charge a lot or they do, you know. And there are people, when people come up to you and you think that, like, wow, this is my best work, and people are like, no, that episode was amazing. No, that photo is really nice. That song is actually a bop. Like, when people come to tell you that, be willing to take a damn compliment and raise your own idea of yourself when that happens. And that's all I'll say.
I agree. I think we are going to wrap it up. I was gonna say, what would our futures, but I feel like this was enough of a read.
I was
Future
like, my
self,
future self,
you're off the hook. You're off
my
the
future
hook.
self can kiss my ass right now.
To be quite honest, don't judge me, future self. Judge
Right.
yourself, bitch.
Exactly. Mind your damn business. Stay where you are. I'll get
Stay
there.
where you
eventually.
are. I will get there. Unless you have some help for me to get from A to B, shut it the fuck up. Okay.
Hop in your time machine real quick before you say anything else.
Right.
My future self thanks me. No, he doesn't.
No,
He hates me.
Yeah, he definitely hates me right now.
Right.
And that's okay. We'll get it together. So let's wrap up the show with the queer query.
Yes.
Question.
So first up, what song plays in your head when you're about to go to war? And I mean, like, if you're getting ready to clap back on somebody on Twitter, or if you got to gather a coworker, things of that nature.
Oh, it's been the same one since I want to say like 2002. I want to say it came out. This goes for everything like basketball, video games, any competition, anytime I'm challenging anybody. T.I.'s Bring 'Em Out.
Oh,
Hell yeah.
one. That's a good one.
100%. It gets me hyped no matter what I'm doing, what I'm feeling. I'm ready to fight and box anyone after that song ends.
Absolutely. So I would say either Nuck If Your Buck,
Yes.
or something more rock or alternative. So probably something System of a Down or something like that.
Come on, System of a Down.
Where it's like, okay, I'm ready to fuck shit up. Let's get these
Right.
guitar riffs going. Absolutely. But Bring 'Em Out is man, I haven't heard that song in a long time. Hey, iTunes, what's up? We need to listen to that song.
I played it this morning.
Well, hopefully it wasn't for me. No.
No, I was cleaning. I was like, Bring 'Em Out, Bring 'Em Out, Bring 'Em Out.
Oh, that means you swept the hell out of that floor.
Oh, Swiffer the fuck down. You already know.
Yes. Okay, next up. What's the first thing that attracts you to another person?
Their smile.
Oh, that's so
Like, I
sweet.
like nice. Like, and people judge me for this, and because this is going to sound really vain and self-important, but I like my smile. It's my favorite thing about me. And so I take care of it. Like, my teeth aren't like perfect, but they're straight enough and hard enough. But I think it's like, it lets people know, like, when you smile, it like emits joy. It lets people know how to walk up to you, how to approach you. You know, you can tell a lot by how someone's smiling at you. And if you have a nice smile, it doesn't have to be a perfect smile. It doesn't have to be straight teeth. If you just have a nice smile, like a friendly smile, like, I'll be warmed up to you immediately. You know, if it looks forced, I'll probably avoid you. So it's probably a smile, and sometimes a butt. It depends on what part of you I see first.
That's real.
It's real life. Sorry if I'm not supposed to say that, but it's
No, absolutely. Yeah, whatever your answer is the answer. I don't have a specific thing, and it's not that I'm trying to be difficult, but there's not ever one feature that just jumps out at me. I take it person to person. So one person, it could be a smile. One person, it could be eyes. It could be hair. It could be skin.
Mm-hmm.
It could be height.
Ooh, come on, height.
It could be just the overall aesthetic package. It could be, oh, that's a nice shirt, and then I'll take in the whole package. But
will you?
No. You listen to the show, you know where I stand. Anyway,
I know, but
Anyway.
it's just you walked into it. I can't let it go.
I kind of did. I'm gonna give you that. I'll give you that. Usually, I'm better at choosing my words, but yeah, I feel like it's just an overall feeling and it's an overall picture. Just because I'm not looking for one specific thing, but if you have something that really stands out, yeah, I'm gonna notice, including butts and prints. So it is what it is.
See, I wish I was I was a bulge watcher for a little bit. Then I started feeling like a creep, but
It is a little creepy, but I mean,
it is creepy. But like I started doing I like doofy features on people too. So like big ears and big noses
yeah,
and
ooh,
like
big noses.
yeah.
Yes.
So like it'll be things like, so I get what you mean. Like the most attractive thing to me is someone's smile, but I'll find things to like about someone.
Yeah.
It's and people are like, ill him. I'm like, oh yeah, him. What the fuck you mean ill?
Right.
He's like, I got a type, and he's like, and I just built it right now. just figured out what it was right here, right now.
Right here, right now. Agreed.
Now.
All right. Last question. Which Greek and or Roman god do you identify with the most?
So this was a tough one because I already have I love Greek mythology and stuff, so I already had one in my head. So I'm just gonna
figured you would.
Right.
Vibes.
So, I'm glad you caught those though. So the one I would go to is Apollo. And everyone thinks because Apollo's
ray
like,
of light.
Right. Everyone thinks like sun god, like beauty. But he was the god of so many. Again, I love Greek mythology, so he was the god of so many other things, like music and knowledge, and he was a marksman. But I love him not because he was great, but because like same reason why I like David in the Bible, not because he was great, but because he was also terrible. Like I like him because he's good at things, but he's also self-destructive. He's good at things, but he's also a bit of a loner. He's good at things, but he can be mean sometimes. So it's like I loved Apollo for that, like the fact that he's fucked up so much of in his life. For the sake of himself, for in hopes of bettering himself, he fucked up so many things. But it's Apollo because he's beautiful, because he's the god of art, because he's the god of knowledge, like all those things. Like I love learning. I think I'm beautiful, even if I don't like my body all the time. So Apollo is my dude.
Here for it. I'm gonna say I think Dionysus. Like, I'm here to have a good time, or I'm not here at all. Like
I was like, come on, wine. I was drinking.
Hello, wine, and just the part. You know what I mean? Like I'm not necessarily always the life of the party, but just here to have a good time. And
I was like, I'm here for a good time, not a long time.
That's the truth. But yeah, whether and I'm fond of a little treat, so whether it's wine or whatever your vice is, like I'm here for it. So, but Dionysus is always the one that I related to the most because he minds his business.
This is very true.
And that is me to it. I mind my business, and I may notice, I may see a lot of things going on, but if it's not my business, then I'll be over here with the wine. All right, turn the music up. Let's shake our asses. And if that over there starts to affect us, then we can get involved. But minding his business and just having his wine, getting fed grapes, doing whatever else he's doing. I also feel like he was very fond of just whatever, I mean, most of the guys are really sexually fluid. So, but I just feel like he's probably the most. He's like, well, when the wine gets to flowing, it don't matter what who the hole is attached to. Let's go for it.
Right.
Let's go for it. Okay, and on that unnecessary freaky note, that wraps up this episode of Gayside Stories. Charneil, again, I want to thank you so much for carving out a little bit of time in your busy / unavailable schedule to come through and chop it up with me. Let the people know where they can find you and your show.
Well, if you guys want to find me on the timelines, because I live on them, you can find me on Twitter and on Instagram on one name. It's at Charneil B. It's CharneilB. You can find my podcast on Twitter as well. It's at WAYF_podcast. You can find the show on Apple Podcasts, on SoundCloud, and on Stitcher.
Yeah, so make sure you guys are checking out What About Your Friends. Follow Charneil on Twitter so you can be abreast of when his new stuff starts to come out. I, for one, I will do my best to be on time because I'm usually late to everything.
Me too, though. So
I was late to What About Your Friends, but I'm here now. I'm here, still here.
See, I was on time for you, though, but it's okay.
Listen, I've been going through trials. Anyway, I've been going through it all. Okay, so guys, remember GaysideStories.com is the hub for more information about this show. Email me at GaysideStories@gmail.com if you want to chop it up. Follow and interact on social media, like the Facebook page, all at Gayside Stories. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. I'm on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Google Play Music, etc., etc. Take a little bit of time to rate on whatever you listen to your podcast, but specifically if you use Apple Podcasts, rate there. I think they made it a little bit easier now, even though the changes that they made suck. Make sure you're sharing this podcast with other people. check out the Sounds of the Stories playlist. The links are all over the place. Thank you for listening, for coming back every week. All the people that interact. Shout out to the young lady that went back from the beginning on SoundCloud and listened to the show. I don't remember your name right now, but next time I will have it. You will get your specific shout out. And as always, you guys, remember the forgotten commandment: thou shalt protect thy walls or they will crumble.
Ooh.
All right, we're out of here.